Hey guys, have you seen this recent drama that's been going on for the last few days involving Brian McKnight? You never hear any mess about Brian McKnight, but a couple of his children basically called him out online, as these young people, that's their way, and they basically called him a deadbeat. But Brian McKnight is telling another story. So let's go ahead and get into this. Now, before I get into like the meat and potatoes of it, just a little background. Brian McKnight, of course, is an American R&B singer-songwriter. He's an arranger. He's a producer. He has earned 16 Grammy Award nominations. Best known for his falsetto voice. His songs, One Last Cry, that was like the breakup song of the early 90s. He has The Only One for Me, and he has Back at One. So Brian McKnight has been married twice, most recently in 2017. He was also married to a woman named Julie McKnight. She had 3 of his children. We have Brian McKnight Jr. pictured here with his dad. We also have Nico McKnight and Bree McKnight. All right. And so recently, Brian McKnight Jr., also known as BJ, and Bree McKnight, his daughter, decided to take to Instagram to put their father on blast, okay? So BJ, he took to Instagram a few days ago, and he posted this beautiful picture of him and his dad at the piano, and then he went in. He said, "I can't imagine abandoning my children, man. It's hard not to imagine the psyche of a man who can truly just turn his back on his actual sons, on his actual blood and creations. It's mind-boggling to me. I don't think there is any situation that merits the way my father has chosen to treat my brother, my sisters, and his grandchildren, one of which being his firstborn son, who also bears our name. It's insane to me to have absolutely no empathy for the type of life be introduced us to, only to resent us for that life catching up with us. It breaks my heart, but not for myself, specifically for my siblings and my children. They don't deserve this at all, not open bit. And I'm not letting shit slide, not for 1 second. I've tried my best to take the high road and be the bigger man and all that positive but there is a much bigger issue here when it comes to Black fathers, especially in entertainment, that needs to be addressed. I believe there's a serious discussion that needs to be had, and a part of me truly feels like our story is one to begin the conversation that will lead to healing a lot of young men and women with abandonment issues. It's time to tell our story." And so Brianna also decided to take to Instagram to put her father on blast, okay? And she reads, or her Instagram reads this. It says, "Daddy's little girl was never really a thing for me. Nobody understands what I've been through except for my siblings. Believe it or not, I'm not always the person I seem to be. I'm not always happy, and most of the time I'm battling my own demons just like everyone else. I grew up thinking that the things that happened to me and my dad's relationship was my fault. I grew up thinking that he doesn't want me to come to visit because he doesn't love me, constantly put behind other kids that he would call his own while I'm cast into a land far, far away in the back of his mind. It sucks knowing that someone else who's not even your blood related to you comes before you in every single way. It sucks knowing that my phone calls have to go through a stranger I barely know, that my text messages are read without a response, and that my stepmother tells me that they wish the best for me. It kills me to know that it's so hard for me and my siblings something. At a very young age, I was always second place in my father's heart, maybe even third, fourth, or fifth, depending on the situation. My father hasn't called to wish me a happy birthday in years, and yet I sit by the phone every single year, hoping that one day his heart will change. I'm so fortunate that I have 2 brothers who are father figures to me, who celebrate me and love me every single day, and that we make up the time we lost. The anger and the sadness that I hold in my heart every day over this is sickening. It hurts knowing that my brothers went through this at my age and are still going through it, and that my little sister is going through it at her young age. I don't usually write things like this, but I feel like enough is enough, and like BJ, I want to share my side of the story." And then she goes on. Now, it was all good just a few weeks ago between BJ and Brian McKnight, because not too long ago, BJ, I believe it was in July, posted this picture, this throwback picture of him and his father. All right. And then he posted some things about wishing that things were the way they were. You know, I'm not going to try to read all. It just says, "This time really flies. I give anything to go back to this family trip. It was pretty much the only one where we were all together. So much has happened since then. Life has thrown more curveballs than I could possibly imagine at the 11-year-old you see pictured. As I get closer to the age my dad was here, I've grown through my own experience in becoming a father too early and giving me a newfound empathy for what he must have been going through. Not that he didn't have his own demons, but the added pressure of being a dad and a husband while balancing superstardom couldn't have been easy. I just want you to know I understand, man, and though we don't speak much these days, I still love you with all of my heart and just want you to be happy. All right. And so it's interesting to me that that all came out like that, because a few weeks ago he was singing another tune. Now, this is Brian McKnight with his new wife, Leilani. I believe they met in 2013 or 2014. They married in 2017. And these are her children that he is pictured with, that he calls his own. Okay. So when he married her, he also calls her children, his children, as you would want a man to do. And so that's what I think Brianna was referring to when she was talking about that he seems to be more involved and want to be around kids that are not even his, yet he doesn't call her and her brother. He doesn't have anything to do with them. Now, Brian McKnight tells another story that I'm going to show you in a few minutes on this video that he posted on Facebook. Me personally, based on what Brian McKnight says, as you're going to hear, I have a feeling that his sons are spoiled and entitled. Now, I'm going to let you hear for yourself and you can make up your own mind. Before he posted that video, I was thinking, I know Brian McKnight ain't out here being that bogus, which again, he possibly could be. He's just telling his side of the story on the video. This is their side of the story. But it's interesting to me that after hearing Brian McKnight says that he has helped these children, not the daughter, I'm referring to the boys, his grown as sons. He's helped them with apartments. His wife right here, picture here, helped him get a job. And they still have their hand out. It's making me think that maybe these boys are just self-absorbed and entitled and they want everything done for them. Now, he goes on to explain this whole thing between him and Brianna and as to why Brianna feels the way she feels about him and why there's some tension between them two. All right. Really, still, again, hard to believe. Do I believe this girl, this young girl, or do I believe Brian McKnight in the story that he tells about why his daughter is estranged from him? It's all an interesting and very sad tale. But again, I know that sometimes grown-ass kids can think that you owe them the world and that they should get just because, you know, they're your kids, even though that they're grown and they should be capable of doing for themselves. Honestly, to me, it does sound like a bit of entitlement going on with his grown children. I'm still not sure about the teenage girl, all right, and what's going on with that. But like I said, he does go on to explain as to why she feels the way she feels. So go ahead and check out this video.
Hey guys, it's Brian McKnight here. I've been traveling about 17 hours to Guam. I have a concert tonight, and I got off the plane to some of the most heinous craziness I've ever seen in my life. That my oldest son, Brian, would post that I'm abandoning my children. And the reason why, I suppose, is because I have a new family. And I guess this stems from a post that I made the other day about my son, Jack, who I'm very proud of. Which isn't to say I'm not and haven't been proud of my other children, but I was proud of this one for the things that he did that day. But we'll get back to that in a second. Anyone who knows me knows over the last 20 years, 30 years now as a matter of fact, that I've been there for my children every step of the way. Until recently, and let's be clear, my two sons are 30 and 27. Not 12, not 13, but 30 and 27. Now my daughter's about to turn 18, that's another story I'll get to in a second. I've never missed a day of child support. I've never done anything adverse to my children whatsoever. I've always been there. I've always been there with advice, whether they took it or not. I've always been the sounding board, and I've always been the one that tried to help them achieve whatever dreams they were wanting to reach out for. I guess one of my only faults is that I gave my children everything that I didn't have in the hopes that they would appreciate it, because I know how much I would have appreciated it when I was their age. I would tell you as parents out there, entitling your children is probably one of the worst things you can do, and I know I am guilty of that. For whatever reasons, I'm guilty of that. Tough love is a tough thing as a parent to try to institute to your children because you want to help them as much as you can, and I did as much as I possibly could. When I stopped doing that for them, BJ was 25 and Nico was 22. And it wasn't like I completely cut them off at that point. That happened much later. But I've been there. When I put them out of my house, I gave them an apartment for 2 years. And I said, guys, this is it. This is the time to grow up. I'm giving you 2 years. I'm going to pay for everything for 2 years, but you're going to have to work or do something because at the end of those 2 years, that's going to be it. It's time to be men here, guys. It's time to grow up. At the end of those 2 years, they hadn't done any of it. It was just right around the time that Leilani and I had gotten together. Leilani was working at Children's Hospital. And let's be clear, Leilani has been one of the only people who's been an advocate to keeping us together, to keeping us having a relationship because she wants to have the nuclear family as much as I did. And they have spit in her face at every turn. She got them jobs at the hospital, $18 an hour with benefits and with the option of the hospital actually paying for them to go back to school. They said, and I quote, that they knew they didn't want to stop smoking and they would have to pass a drug test. And the day I had the doctors looking into it, Nico's on there, taking a big puff, which is fine. If you want to smoke, that's fine. I'm not saying that that's bad. If that's your choice, that's your choice. But what I'm telling you is that we have been advocates for them every step of the way. Now let's go to the part where we have been estranged. Again, we talk about abandonment. I'm not abandoning them. We are estranged, which happens more often than not in this particular situation. BJ broke into our home a few months ago and he put X's on the eyes of our wedding photos. And then he put a photo of my first wedding on Leilani's vanity. It was at that moment, and after I heard him say, and was pointed to from other friends of mine that saw his posts on social media, that he basically said that I was better off dead to him than alive. I was more valuable to him dead than alive. And that was the end of me dealing with him. If you look at my Instagram, you'll see that not my last video, but the video before that, 42, the song was written by Brian and I, and it was directed, the video, by Nico. And I went on and I said how proud I was of Nico at the time, and I really, really was. He did an awesome job in that video. Even before that, less than 2 years ago, these are the two gentlemen who stood up for me as my best men in my wedding. So abandonment, deadbeat dad, I'll reiterate, I've never missed a day of child support. I've been there every step of the way. BJ, he talks about Jack's new car. BJ had 3 brand new cars before he was 22. But I'm not talking about material things, because none of this has anything to do with money. It's about respect. Respect goes both ways. And even in family, there's a line that shouldn't and should not ever be crossed. It's crazy to me that people will just believe anything, and I thought it was important to set the record straight and let you guys know that abandonment has nothing to do with any of this. Deadbeat dad, I've been there every step of the way. And let's also remember that these kids are 30 and 27, not 12. It's time for grown men to be grown men. And I'm sorry that tough love happens to be this way. And I do wish them the best. I want them to have and to reach their dreams and their full potential, but like any other man in the world, you got to go out there and you got to take it. As far as my daughter is concerned, her mother, if you look back at my Instagram, she was a part of this family too, with Jack and Julie and Leilani and myself. And unfortunately, along the way, a couple years ago, I got wind that there was an older cousin who was above 18, who was quite possibly having sex with her. So I called, as a father should, to the state office for children's affairs there in Arizona, and I never heard anything back. But the next thing that her mother did was to block all of us from her social media, from her phone, and completely estranged her from us. So what that told me was they didn't want me to be involved in her life that way. So to see the post that she said, considering that her mother only had a child with me for money in the first place, and I'll reiterate this, I have not missed a child support payment. She goes to one of the most incredible private schools in Arizona. So I don't know where this is all coming from, but I thought that I needed to let everybody know that there's another side to this story. You can choose to believe what you want. I thought that I would lay it out there for you. Anything that I say is actual and factual. All you have to do is Google Brian McKnight and Sons, and you'll see us singing all over YouTube. Go back and look at my Instagram. Go back a couple of years. You'll see that I've posted about all of my children. But remember that these kids, these boys, they're grown men, and tough love is exactly what it is. It's tough love. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening, and I hope that gives you a little bit more perspective.